Hello, survivors, and welcome to Tier Death Experience, the first stage spray show where we rank various aspects of the survival horror game. My name is James, and joining me today is Steve.
Oh, yeah.
And Sherwin.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and we're talking about the S.T.A.R.S deaths in the survival horror game Resident Evil. But before we go ahead, we just want to say, we put in like the most canon names, but there will be honorable mentions that we have discussed.
There's no non-canon deaths.
Right. Yeah, no non-canon deaths. There's also some like kind of are they not S.T.A.R.S members? So we're just gone with certainties, but there are going to be mentions. By a certain show and Steve. At the end.
I like the way I'm being demonized here. I am absolutely not a problem here.
And Steve.
Yeah.
Hey,
Steve.
It's going to be a riot.
And we're talking. Let's dive straight into it. So the first death is Edward Dewey.
Why is it always Edward first?
But isn't he the first one to die?
Yeah, maybe. Unless Kevin. Wait, no, let's not. No, yeah.
We should give Kevin. We could talk about Kevin Dooley. It's a good time to talk about Kevin Dooley.
Okay.
Kevin Dooley isn't a S.T.A.R.S member, but is killed, arguably before Edward, probably.
I don't know.
We care? I guess do we care other than just saying the words Kevin Dooley, so that way people know that we know our stuff.
So
he goes like this.
So
then dies.
So I'm gonna put Edward Dewey in B, but that doesn't mean it's a B death. Okay, I'm just sticking it here so we know who we're looking at.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is the best. The best part about this, of course, being that Edward Dewey has had so many different appearances and changed even mid-game, kind of how he sounds and how he looks. He's a chameleon. It could be any one of those people down there.
I mean, his earliest iteration was as a Eddie Murphy knockoff before he got finalised in RE0 as a bit of a chump who jumps through a window and just goes, "Watch out for the forest, Rebecca. It's filled with zombies and monsters." And then died.
Right.
Bit rubbish.
I'm going to be honest with you. Other than, even Jill Valentine to a certain extent, I was looking at all these names. The thing that confuses me about Resident Evil is all the names look very similar. So it's going to be hard for me because I'm going to rely on you and Sherwin to basically direct me. So Edward Dewey died on the train, right?
Technically, he died there. Yeah, he had his last words on the train.
Right, and then did he come back later as a zombie?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about spoilers here, Steve. It's a very old game.
No.
So, talk to me for a little bit. Wasn't it supposed to? I appreciate obviously they find a hand in the original Resident Evil. Now, at some point, was that supposed to be Edward Dewey's hand?
I believe so. It was implied to be, but they changed, obviously.
Did they though? Which is the canonical thing? Does his hand turn up near the mansion, and the rest of him turns up on the train?
I think he has both his hands. I want to say he has both his hands on the train.
Yeah, I think he does too, yeah.
Not to say that he couldn't have lost it where the train exploded, but that's a reach, isn't it?
That's a really big explosion. The hand flies through the air and lands.
Maybe it's like it's a zombified hand. It always finds its way home to the.
Well,
I like to think of the hand in the OG. The OG RE1 is Edward's, and then in remake it's either Kevin's or one of the hikers they're looking for.
Yeah. They're Americans. They all carry guns for fun, so that makes sense. If you go out hiking, you'll carry like a Beretta, right?
Yeah. I'm sure. Do not offend all the Americans in the audience.
True. Sorry, I'll correct that. Other gun brands are available, American listeners. It doesn't have to.
Other guns are available.
Okay, so in terms of his death, what do we rate?
He's pretty poor. He's pretty poor. Like, he's basically got a carbon copy of poor Joseph's death, which we'll get onto later on.
Yeah.
Like, I always felt it was very unimaginative. Like, he's deaf, and then he kind of has a weird amalgamation of, I get mauled to death by dogs, you've seen that before. I turn into a zombie, you've seen that before.
He has quite a lot of tricks if you look at it in the strangest way. I agree with the show in its pants, but he has final last words. and he has been bitten by fucking everything, and he still comes back as a zombie. And some of these deaths that we got later on do not have last words, but they have various bits and pieces. Does that make sense? But also, he literally just goes, and that's not really all that to look at, is it?
It's a bit lame, isn't it? So would we say D tier for Mr.
D
Edward?
for Dewey!
D for Dewey? Yeah.
I mean, is there anyone who's inherently got a worse death than him? Is really the question. Is he setting our lowest point for when this guy dies? This is very bottom. Like this is the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
I would say out of this list, I would say I think this is probably the worst. In terms of like overall deaths, like it's not very exciting. He's basically there as an exposition body, and then talks to you and then barely talks to you and then just like expires. It's not really exciting anyway.
I'm just thinking Sherwin's got some massive ideas because their head was literally got the light bulb behind him. And
so the thing is, Sherwin has just made a game where all of these guys are alive again. So this is really confusing for the most part. I know. I think Edward Dewey's got to be tied for I was just thinking Edward Dewey's got to be tied for one of the worst deaths. If nothing else, just purely because it's so anonymous. If nothing else, knowing from recent experience of interacting with the community, a lot of people don't even know who Edward Dewey is. And the simple reason for that fact is that he's the only S.T.A.R.S member I think that doesn't appear in the actual in the original game or the remake, other than as potentially as a severed hand. We don't really. And then in terms of the zero death, it's unimaginative. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
an amalgam of all the others, but nothing making it special.
Yeah, so I mean, there is one extra further step here, which is worth discussing. So when you turn into a zombie in the Resident Evil universe, do you die or are you just an infected human?
Very, very sick. There's no coming back from the dead. There's people who have been presumed dead, but they are still sick and come back. But there's no death.
Similar question then. Does the Elliptic Express blow up?
It derails. Derails and there's a impact explosion, but not like a RE2 train blow up kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel so. So conceivably, is there anything in the canon that says Edward Dewey is killed by Rebecca or Billy on the train? Because if not, Edward Dewey is still alive.
Well, alive.
Well, no, he is. That's the whole point of why I asked this. Edward Dewey isn't dead.
I think Sherwin's too big brain for me right now. No.
I think take Edward Dewey off this list because Edward Dewey is not dead.
He's just very unwell.
Yeah, he's not going to be resuming his dance classes, which is canon, by the way. But the point is that at the same time, he's not dead.
All right, we changing the list.
Which is the greatest dancer in S.T.A.R.S? He's an S rank. That's exactly what it is. It's
S.T.A.R.S members who are MIA or KIA. That's what it is.
I feel like having been cast as the agent of chaos in this, I feel like James is really that. James is kind of just sitting here, got a headpiece on. I can already hear Sai's voice just going, "Stop this man! Stop him from saying these things. Edward Dewey is dead." Literally that.
Okay, I think D is good. What do you think, Steve?
I think D for Dewey is fine because it's got all the parts, but nothing special. Yeah. That's my take. And
I think he's not dead, and you guys are making canon up, which is fine. We can run with that for the rest of the episode. I'm fine with that.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, this is all right. So next up, we have Joseph Frost, who I need to look at the image of. So I'm gonna stick him in B. Here we go.
Known to his friends as Joseph.
So Joseph was eaten by Cerberus right at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a chump. He goes, "Come here," and then just gets eaten like a chump.
It's a pretty brutal death, to be honest.
He has a massive big ass cannon of a gun, and he doesn't fire a single shot and gets wasted by some.
Yeah, he sets the tone of the entire game. I always felt for Joseph. I always felt kind of sorry for him, right? Because he's obviously a chump. in the way that he gets it. He goes into this sort of thing, but he just has that thing where, much like Kendo in RE2, doesn't really get an opportunity to get away for sheer volume of enemies that suddenly just overwhelm him very quickly and and murder him. So I'm not sure we actually get to really correctly witness much from him. We'll see. He could have been like the greatest survivor ever if he'd just not had that one moment where he got overwhelmed.
It says he's wearing a red bandana, which means he's the red shirt of S.T.A.R.S.
That's also true. And he is the person who sets the tone for the rest of the game.
Definitely
for the rest of the series.
Yeah. James, how familiar are you with the variations on his death? Because he's got technically 3. He's got the one that you see in Director's Cut, which is just like a black and white, a few smash cuts of Cerberus, and he's gone. You've got Remake, where it's all like a CGI disaster piece from his camera, looking at him trying to load his gun, getting mauled by dogs. And then the original uncut version is like some Romero-esque brutality porn, completely like a death shot in full color. And I have to be honest, this scene is so fucked up and a great entry point. I think this is childishly the first S rank. I'm just saying.
Bold. That's very bold.
It's Resident Evil. It's a zombie horror game, and seeing people even taking a remote hint of a Romero-style death, I think is
I'm with you. I'm with you. It's a good death. I don't know his S. I think we want to save S for some of the more remarkable ones. I can give you an A.
So in terms of I'm because I feel like RE0, many people are going to yell at me, but it's simply because of the viewer, the community, sees as a whole.
This is an opinion thing, James. They can go fucking one.
Right. Sorry, Remake 1. Sorry, not RE0. But that is the pinnacle, of what is considered canon. So I feel like that death is pretty brutal. Is one of the best. I'm looking down the list, and it's one of the best, but I don't think it's S rank.
Okay, I see what you boys are saying.
I want to throw something in here which might help us have some context to this, right? And for me, this is structure, which is weird. So I admit this in advance. So for me, there's a couple of factors to have here, right? The first one is, how important is this to the Resident Evil universe in terms of where does it fit? Does it, like this one, it sets the tone, for example, for the whole series, pretty much. It just shows the brutality of what Resident Evil could be, versus something that could be quite throwaway. The next one is, how well known is this character? How much does that resonate within the community and the audience, right? And the last one, of course, is how spectacular is the death? And I think if that's the metrics that in my head I'm looking at, Edward Dewey, for example, apart from ignoring for the fact at the moment that Edward Dewey isn't dead, Edward Dewey is an unknown character, so doesn't really have much resonance. It's a death which is unremarkable because there's other people who've been mauled to death by dogs and turned up as zombies again. And then there's and it's it's not really that impactful in the universe in any grand scheme of things. If he wasn't in that scene, it really wouldn't make a blind bit of difference if Ed would have just disappeared. Whereas this one, it's really important. It's really impactful. Joseph isn't really a very big character, so that does draw it back a little bit. But then the other element is kind of how spectacular is his death? Off the chain. So for me, this probably pushes it into an A.
I would say it's an A for me, and I think it's probably going to be a middling to low A based on other people. But I mean, who knows? We might get to the end of this, and it might be.
We can revise this as we go, right? We don't have to.
These aren't set in stone. I'm just
saying. Edward Dewey's got to come off this list anyway, so it's fine.
All right. So, are you okay with that, Steve?
For the moment, I'm sure we can negotiate that later. Yes.
So next we have Kenneth J. Sullivan. Who I believe was that the first guy you see in this?
That's the first. Yeah, it's the first guy you see who's been eaten by Mr. Peruk or Lightbulb Head.
The hallway dude.
The whole zombie who does the whole. Bit. Yeah.
So this guy. Actually, I remember there being. Wasn't there a video of you can see a video of him actually running
in
away?
Remake?
Yeah.
Well, failing to run away and getting murdered. avoided.
I feel this may be strong, but I feel like his death, even more so than Joseph Frost's, is a big kind of baseline foundation for this game. But you don't really, like, a caveat to that is at least myself, you don't really care about who just got ate. You're looking at the zombie. Like, they're the thing that, like, kind of draws your mind. I had no idea who this guy was beforehand. Like, yes, I see a name on the ground, but, you know, I didn't know who it was. So,
that's because he's a mere shadow of his former self.
Right.
You big nerd.
Yeah, so it's edging towards a low A to high B for me at the moment. I can be convinced, though.
I'm going to jump in and say that the first zombie encounter and Kenneth's therefore death scene is a game referenced moment, and more than just Resident Evil. Like, it's in quite a few indie games. It's referenced in the own remake of itself. It's then also in The Evil Within. And basically, anytime some scary monster is doing the whole, like, head turn, normally it's preceded by an imitation of Kenneth's death. So while Kenneth himself, the character, may be a bit, another red shirt, great. The actual action of his death and the way it's portrayed and done cinematographically is a meme in the game development lexicon for horror. So I think it's up there.
Up there.
Up there. It's pretty up there.
Okay. I mean, how up there, though, Steve?
I mean, it's not like the Jedi's lightsaber being turned on in terms of cultural significance, but in the horror game sphere, I feel like it has at least something equivalent to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think, Sherwin? You've got the big brain.
What do you think, Sherwin?
I think the interesting point that I look at with Kenneth's death is more so much, if we examine that, we can understand whose blood is by the fireplace. And that makes it pretty important as a death for obvious reasons, because we hope this is not Chris's blood, and it's not Chris's blood.
It's Kenneth's.
It's not even Kenneth's, though. It's the zombies. Because that's where the gunshot is from.
I see what you're saying.
He hits the zombie as he's running away. He's fine. At this point, he's not wounded or bleeding. He's not like, when we encounter him, he's clearly like, no, get away. But he's not like, I'm injured or anything, which is like governed for the amount of blood that's on the floor. So therefore, he's obviously clearly not suffering that much. The blood is the zombies. He shoots if that's where the gunshot comes from. He shoots the zombie. Obviously, a bunch of blood comes out, and then he runs away from it, and then ultimately, for some reason, he's just utterly useless, and then gets eaten. That no get away thing. Again, going back to the scale, Kenneth is not a terribly well-known character, but he is more known than Joseph. Probably because of the meme level, I suspect. Like, is it an important death because it's gory as anything? I mean, half his head falls off, and it's half chewed away to nothingness. That's pretty gory. It's pretty spectacular. Do you then find harrowing footage of it later on? Yeah, which you've been carrying with you for the entire game in Remake? Kinda.
The severed head, you mentioned that, and then the remake, they switch it out for, like, literally his dying breath, so you can see, like, the light leave his eyes kind of thing.
Yeah, it's this one is possibly... I already feel like I want to put him in A and then move Joseph down to B. Already, literally that. But I don't want to also, at the same time, get in the way of our integrity here. So for me, this is a higher ranked A than Joseph.
Okay.
Where you at, James?
So I was low A to high B. But you guys know he was an alchemist, did you know? Well, he was a scientist as well. He's a chemist. He's really smart, which makes sense why he, like, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. He must have had, like, basic training, maybe, like Rebecca did, right? Because during that video, he's just, like, scared out of his mind. I remember that specifically, and the fact that it's kind of stuck in my mind, which is a mind that sieves memories, quite easily, is quite something. So I can go to a high A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of like seeing where everyone was at, and I will concede that maybe Joseph's death is not quite as impactful as Kenneth's, even if Kenneth is as much a character as Joseph is, in that they have
I think put them both up there, like put them both next to each other. I think we'll see whether we revise them down. I don't necessarily know we want to think about ranking the equal ranks on there. We can do that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect.
All right, next we have Richard Aiken from the original game. We're doing both deaths here. I'm gonna stick him in B there. That's Richard Aiken, right? Yeah. Yeah. Richard Aiken potentially dies. From, I mean, potentially no, he does die from getting eaten by Yawn, right?
In the original, he dies. He succumbs to poisoning, no matter what you do.
Oh yeah, right.
He is ouch.
Ouch.
Yeah, he has the greatest bit of video game dialogue ever. Not only in the original, but when they then changed it to the Deadly Silence, where they redubbed him. I have no idea why.
Yeah, I love that. Like the commitment to the bit where we're going to do a new mechanic with Richard, but we also need someone to record dialogue, and it has to be as naff, or at least on par as the naff as the original.
Goes beyond. It really does go beyond.
Wow.
I've been attacked by a giant snake. Ouch.
Oh no. It is proper troll to, oh my god, that level of cadence.
And any one of the three of us, plus anyone who's watching this video, could have done a better job than the person who actually did it. It's literally someone who's learning how to speak is doing it at the time they're recording it.
It's like somebody, I always feel like with Richard Aiken and that original game, it's as if somebody is just yelling, like the voice director is just yelling at them. No, I want more. Give me more. Right? But they're going the opposite direction. Like, they go,
it's more Tommy Wiseau. More Tommy Wiseau. Give me more.
I did not.
You're tearing me apart, Yawn.
Get me serum.
Oh, hi, Rebecca.
Oh, hi, Rebecca. Oh god,
amazing. So to get us back on track, Richard is a better known character, but this is not a good death because you, as the player, are completely impotent to stop it from doing anything. Like you jump through the hoops, you run and get the serum, you do the stuff you're supposed to do, and then he dies anyway, and it just feels it's unrewarding.
Takes your agency from you that you've been trying so hard to. Yeah.
Well, it just makes you feel like, on the one hand, it kind of underscores the futility of, just how grim this situation is, but at the same time, and how futile your efforts might be to try and avert the crisis. But the flip side, it's not the most spectacular of deaths. Like
he literally just falls asleep and some spouts of blood out of his shoulder. It's not all that inspiring. I would say, like Sherwin says, it's a time waster. You have two options in RE1. You can, three technically. You can either find him dead, the best option, or you can find him in need of help, get him the serum, he dies anyway. You can find him in need of help, get him the serum, oops, I forgot for a bit, keep the serum for yourself, and he's dead anyway. It's kind of rubbish. Yeah. He's there to impede your way to getting to fight Yawn, and that's it.
So would you guys say that his death is is a better death than Edward Dewey's death, or would you say it's worse?
It is, because at least it's Edward Dewey's continual life, resurrection, as it were, is just anonymous. Like, no, it doesn't really make any difference to anything. Like, he doesn't foreshadow anything. He doesn't, he just old and tried. Other people have died in the same way. At least Richard is a more well-known character. It foreshadows Yawn, and it is a death where it's remarkable enough. I think this is C territory. I don't think it's not like one of the more spectacular deaths, which is really A's. It's not one of the better deaths, which is B's. It's kind of in the middle ground. It's not terrible, like it's not a D.
I can get with that. Yeah, C is good for me too.
I mean, there's only one death on here which is really worthy of an S, which we all know exactly what that's going to be. But there we are.
I kind of it's the fact that the game pretends that the player has agency in it that's kind of annoying me. I appreciate that we have participation in his death, and he obviously gets a bit more voice lines than many of his compatriots here. But at the same token, he's not really much of a character, so much as a a forewarning of yawn.
Yeah, he's the guy to give you the radio and die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely like bonus points there for like the fact that he speaks and does all this, because otherwise, for me, he is a straight D. He is bottom. But because of the fact that you can interact with him, I will say he's low C. For me, he's very low.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I can get behind that.
So we're all agreeing with C there. Yeah. I mean, the next person is the same person. Richard Aiken from Remake.
There's two ways he can die here.
Yeah,
two?
so
I know if it's free, you can not give him the serum and he just dies eventually.
Yeah, I'd imagine. You horrible person.
I don't know that.
I mean, I haven't gone out of my way to test that theory of, hey, Richard, you want serum? Cool.
Maybe it's just like
back in a bit.
Maybe it's just like a fade to black thing. Like it's, you know, it's going to happen. I do feel like the shark death is pretty epic, though.
I mean, to be fair, even the snake self-sacrifice, both of his self-sacrifice deaths are pretty epic. Like in terms of setting up what the monster can do, and the fact that obviously it's a thing the player has had agency in. They've saved his life for him to then save their life, and you get a kick-ass shotgun out of it. It's definitely better than his original compatriot self, and arguably, I don't think we're counting other games here, but his character is more built up through Umbrella Chronicles, where he's there with Rebecca, and therefore the character model at least goes on a bit more of an adventure than the original.
I think we should count other game experiences, because ultimately we're already counting 0 for Edward Dewey. And we're going to count another game that I don't know exists for Wesker. So I mean, it's all good. I think the thing that struck me about my honest memory of playing through the remake my first time is, I get to save Richard, and then when he dies later on, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. I would have liked to save him. For it to have that much of a reaction or that much of an interaction thing, that's good. So yeah, I can get on board with that. I don't think he's up there as an A, but he's a definite B for me. Nice guy character, the one you want to live, doesn't die, doesn't get to live, but has emotional impact to you. That's important.
Buy him more time, and he does you like a dividend as a result. I'm happy with B. What do you think, James?
So there is a caveat to this, because I think that both of those self-sacrifice deaths are dope. But he also, and I'm going to go into characterization here, he has that letter that he sends home to his wife or girlfriend, right?
It's a sister, I believe.
Sister, right. And says, I'm going to do he doesn't even say I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to die, he says. And that always rubs me the wrong way, because it's like, well, he would have tried his best not to die then. He wouldn't have, like, sacrificed himself for a friend. I get it, and it's really sweet. It's just like, you just told your sister that you weren't going to die, but you did anyway.
I mean, if you give him the choice between saving a life and not saving a life, the fact that he made the decision...
Yeah, it's like, it's a hard one. It's just like, now his sister doesn't have the brother,
His sister probably turned into a zombie. It's fine.
Probably. That's canon now.
He survived. He was inside Yorn's gut the entire time. Just as the bomb's getting off, he crawls out and he runs off into the wilderness, and he just lives a happy life in peace with Edward,
with Lisa Trevor in the forest. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of grade ranking, I really want to put him in A, just because of how epic his deaths are.
Well, maybe we can then. Go on, put him in A. I can see him in A because he gets quite a bit of dialogue. He's more impactful. I can see it up there.
We'll do the decisions for later on, because I feel like that A is going to change around.
Yeah.
He may have been Bravo on the skill sheets, but he's an alpha in our hearts, and therefore he's an A rank.
See, Steve sums up better than we ever could. Well done, Steve. That was glorious.
Steve is a poet.
No.
Next on the list is Forrest, right? Forrest here.
Oh my god!
Forrest.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's
Forrest Speyer, who was pecked to death by crows.
Looks like he was killed by a chair or something.
Yeah. Died with a bazooka that looks like a vacuum hoover. Yeah, he's son.
Technically,
again, he's another survivor in the sense that we don't ever see anyone finish that zombie off.
He can't in certain versions of Remake. He gets a grenade pouch, and if you hit him the once, he blows you and them the fuck up.
Although, to be fair, because he's in the mansion, when it detonates, he'll get blown up. So he actually is dead. Okay, I'll accept that one.
Okay.
He could have run pretty fast out the front door. Let's not count him out.
He's a pretty fast zombie, actually, isn't he? This guy?
Yes, he's faster than the average, just slower than a Crimson by a smidgen.
Yeah. I mean, so he technically, I mean, are we ranking the different versions of his death? Because obviously in RE original, he's just a corpse. And that's literally it. And then director's cut onwards, he kind of stands up and goes for a walk. Do we want? Are we looking at it that way?
On our tier list that our illustrious CEO Sai has made, it's all in one bundle package. But I agree, they're two different versions, at least maybe three.
This is where the canonical thing kind of goes out the window. You've got to have if we think remake supersedes kind of the original, then Richard shouldn't be on there twice.
True.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I mean, I made that assumption, by the way. There wasn't.
Well, there's no other reason Richard should be on there twice, to be fair.
Yeah.
Unless that's supposed to represent Edward Dewey, represent Kevin Dooley. Who knows? I think so. Forrest is a cool character. We don't really get to see much of him though, in terms of he doesn't really have any. I don't think he have any lines in Zero. I don't think he does. I think he's just stands there and looks moody guy. Yeah. And it I guess the idea from the bloodstains like in the original, he's already mortally wounded, staggers out onto the balcony to get some fresh air, and then basically can't defend himself because he's so near death when he gets mobbed by crows. That's a pretty harrowing death, to be honest. The guy's just lost and lost in this mansion of death, staggers outside. I'm not close inside those walls anymore, and then literally looks up, see birds descending upon him and peck his eyes out. That's pretty grim. But also, by the same thing, Cerberus tears your throat out, kind of zombie, just bites into you, makes you into one of his buddies, eaten by a snake. It's pretty lame.
Well, being murked by crows. I don't know. I kind of find it a bit, in a strange way, I find it unique.
It is unique, I'll give you that.
And this is more maybe a personal bias thing, right? But it brings to mind, obviously Hitchcock's The Crows is the obvious one. But somewhere my brain is doing mental gymnastics, and I keep seeing the little annoying little dinosaurs in Jurassic Park that are tiny. They nip at people.
Yeah.
And they murder them. It's like the equivalent of the Resident Evil version of this is he's been battered by raptors and then he gets picked off by a swarm of these and just done. I feel like the fact that he dies in such a horrible way and it's unique should give him brownie points. The characters grieve for him, which is more than they do for most. If they find him Jill and Barry together, they have a moment to talk about it.
Before they loot his body. Yeah.
You should take this gun, Jill.
Yeah. Well, Barry doesn't care. He's ever practical guy. I mean, I don't think he's in sort of C territory. I think for me, he's a solid B. I'll go with that.
So,
James.
So, when I first saw Forrest, I thought, why is he sitting in a chair? I thought, why is he in a chair? And then when I heard that he'd been pecked by crows, it kind of made more sense to me because, yeah, as you said, Steve, he's been running through this mansion, probably exhausted. Guess the whole team, for some silly reason, the whole team decided to split up, horror movie reasons, and then he goes into this tight hallway or veranda, whatever it is, and starts to get pecked by crows. And at first he probably thought they're just birds. He's probably just batting them off, but slowly he's getting weaker and weaker. Before he gets to the end of the hallway, sees a chair, and he's lost so much blood at this point. He's probably think, I need a rest. He's probably getting cold, exhausted, tired, and he's probably sat down, and then that's where his death was. So because of these crows constantly picking at him, his very last, his last one up, his last heart, was taken away by these crows. Yeah, so that's kind of the only, because otherwise, him sitting on a chair doesn't really make much sense. It's a really unique death. You don't really see that.
It's an exhausted death, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not something so much as a brutal rip out of throat or anything like that. It's just I'm so fucking done.
Exactly. That's what I feel like. I can get inside his head just through the environmental storytelling, like of him. He's just had enough, and then he's just been eaten. It's, and I think it's a trademark of Resident Evil. Like you're always dreading that moment that you come out and you see him. And then he's been pecked by crows. It's really awful. You think about like how that death could affect you potentially. It's awful.
I mean, maybe this is again projection from me, but I mean, I've had plenty of playthroughs where, oh god, I'm on danger, I'm going to die, and all of a sudden the tiniest, piddliest rubbish thing has one-shot me, like in not a big kill animation, just like a peck, and then my character goes and dies. Like, I suppose this is the video game way of showing how that can happen to you.
I do not think it's better than remake Richard Aiken, and I do not think it's worse than original Richard Aiken. So I think B is a very good place to put him, like a high B.
Or the B, as it were.
Or the B, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think what's nice about if you were to look at these, there's a story to this death. But yeah, we could debate exactly what that story is, whether he's bleeding to death, staggers out there, collapses on the chair, and then the crows find him at some point while he's unconscious and just finish him off, or whether, as you say, he's staggering off, fighting them off all the way, and then collapses into the chair and dies. But either way, there's some storytelling going on there where you can see it, and immediately your mind starts running with it, what could be happening, or whatever else. That doesn't actually happen so much with a lot of the other characters, because you find them generally, and you find them as they are killed, or you see them get killed, or whatever else. So as a result, there's a part of this which kind of lets the individual really kind of run with themselves and really kind of work out what it is, and that's kind of cool. I think, it's a solid death. If there's I think it happily fits in B for me.
What do you think, Steve?
I will concede. I will say, I was going to say lowest A, but then I think that you have made strong cases for why it's not quite the specialist thing in the world. Can I suggest then that he is the first proprietor of B rank?
But
he may not be I'm trying to figure out if he's going to be front or back. I guess we'll see. We've got other things to get through, haven't we?
Yeah,
he may not be the only B by the time we're done.
So next we have Enrico Marini. This is Enrico, right?
Yeah.
Enrico!
Is that you, Jill?
Who was shot by the traitor in the original game.
In every version of the game.
Is it always the same?
Yeah.
He gets shot by Wesker, doesn't he? Is there any version he doesn't get shot by Wesker?
No, he's always shot by Wesker. Even I think they even make a point that you can hear the distinctness of Wesker's gun sound versus Barry's gun sound. They make sure that it's
definitely not the Beretta, is it? Yeah.
So what you're saying is the only canon death is Enrico Marini right now.
No, to be fair, the bullet hit his vest. He might have just been tired.
But then he got blowed up by the mansions, so it's also true.
Unless he got away crawling.
Just crawling out of a blast.
Yeah.
Oh,
let's just stick these little nuggets in.
I've got to find Jill. Explosion.
Yeah.
Despite the fact this is probably, if you for some reason have been running around the mansion like a total dunce and not read any files and not put two and two together yet, Enrico is your wake-up call. There is definitely a traitor amongst the stars. Especially if you're playing Chris's campaign, which doesn't do the whole, Barry's a little flaky, isn't he, Jill? So, as the fact that it's more of a narrative thing, great. But he is literally just a man slumped in a sewer who's shot. Being shot in a game where everyone else is getting murked by zombies, I suppose, maybe points down, kind of still feels a bit rubbish to me. Narrative significance, great, but also he does just go, it's not great. Do I detect I'm going to get yelled at by the internet a little bit?
No, I agree with you. He's a character that...
You're not the internet, James.
I am the internet. This is laying it down. No, I don't agree with you. I feel like this character could have been taken advantage of better if they actually introduced them a lot sooner. If they'd introduced him sooner in some way, I would have felt a little bit more about his death. other than
like a radio call or something from him.
Anything, yeah. Because when he turns up, he's just, it's Guy slumped down on ground. Great.
I mean, excluding Rebecca, obviously, because she survives. He's the last person in the Bravo team to die, and he's also the group's leader, which has significance in the fact that he's meant to be this big shot, but you don't really get to see him do anything awesome. He has more dialogue in Resident Evil 0 to build him up as a character. But again, it's just, watch out for Billy Cohen, Rebecca. He's a bit dodgy.
Keep your guard up.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think, Sharon?
He's basically Mr. MacGuffin bot, isn't he? Like that's kind of his thing. He turns up to kind of prove that there's a traitor. He's kind of the other guy. I think there's like, if you know anything about the character, there is a slight sadness to it. Like, he is clearly the guy who should be leading S.T.A.R.S but doesn't get to because political shenanigans. He's the guy who survives all the way clearly to like the labs and back, because he comes back and he's found documents. He knows the truth of what the situation is. Like, he's kind of got that far and worked various bits out. Like, he's made it, unlike the other chumps who kind of got, a couple of rooms into the mansion and then get murked or don't even get that far. He's made it all the way in. Like, and he hasn't Rebecca where he's kind of hiding and waiting for death. He's actually doing his best to investigate, but before obviously he's mortally wounded and staggers into the caves and basically faces the death of just starving to death or whatever, or bleeding to death, whichever comes first, I guess. But it's not the best. Like, it's not particularly spectacular. It's important, I guess, because it reveals a traitor, but you'd already worked that out. Like, by the time he gets there, I don't know anybody who went, "That's news. Who knew?" Like, everyone knows by then. Yeah, like,
I feel like we're doing him a disservice, but it's not.
No, it's
not great.
He's not a really super well known character. He's not got a really spectacular death, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not terribly spectacular. It's not terribly important to the plot or the actual games or anything. He feels like a C. He's a better C than Richard, but he's a C.
I agree with that. What do you think, Steve?
Heartbreaking as it is, because I kind of I know that in our corner of the fandom, Enrico's quite a beloved character. Yeah. One of the best S.T.A.R.S characters, despite the fact he doesn't do much. Like Sherwood said, he gets to the labs and back. He finds out all these secrets. Probably is doing great until the hunters get out, and then he's fucked. But in terms of what you actually see and what I see him do, and then what happens to him, it's just not. It's not great.
Yeah. I mean, and the whole point is we're not ranking them as characters. We're ranking their deaths.
Exactly.
It's the important thing to remember.
I mean, the one man being shot in a horror game, maybe, that gets him out of D, but it's not great.
Yeah. I still think he's better than original.
I agree with that. Yeah. Like, because the story, the background of it all.
Yeah. All right. So next, we have Brad Vickers.
Yeah, that's a sensible choice. That is the S, quite frankly.
I was thinking of B for now, but I'm pretty sure we're going to agree on this one. This was so well done. It's done early in the game. You had a connection to this guy. He's been basically taking you through. This is, by the way, taking into account some of the newer game as well. But
we're going with face fucked by Nemesis, aren't we?
Yeah. That's the one I'm thinking of. But
I mean, to be honest, the original RE3 had a much better death than Brad.
I would argue Remake 3's is sadder and slightly more tragic. It's
a tragic, yeah.
Well, it's nothing compared to literally a cowardly, terrified man who's been trying to tell you to get the hell out, to then have to prove it by dying, by being literally ripped apart by a 10-foot tall tentacle death monster. It sets a tone, and it puts Nemesis straight on the card as one of the most terrifying things a player will face on the PS1. So, I will give it S. Don't find me in my sleep, Mr. Nemesis man, please.
He deserves an S. He is the most spectacular death here by bar none, simply put. And he's like the link that ties the three games together, like the original games. He's the only one who makes it into all of them. He's a member of S.T.A.R.S. Like, he illustrates immediately why Nemesis is here, what he's here to do, and that's bad. And the crucial point is this represents, in terms of the lines, like, nothing the police can do, Jill. We can't stop them. Nowhere safe. That sort of stuff. Like he delivers important dialogue before he dies, as well as you're our Amazon, Jill. Like I don't really like the Brad character an awful lot. There's no real surprise there, I'm sure, but at the same time, he's got a really awesome death, and it's really meaningful, really impactful.
Yeah, and it makes you
fully
feel
playable character in every Steam Forged Resident Evil game, I believe.
He's what? Sorry.
He's a fully playable character in every Steam Forged Resident
Evil
game.
A random plug. Yeah, he's true. I have made so many versions of Brad Vickers at this point. Oh my god.
Yeah. And he also because I Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was the first Resident Evil I ever played. I only ever played it for about an hour or two because it terrified me. And I was only like 12. So when it came out, and that death made me feel alone, and that is really important for a survival horror game, especially at the beginning, because when he died, I was like, oh, who do I have? And this was somebody who hadn't played RE2, hadn't know what happened beforehand either. So when he died, I just felt so alone and scared. Especially the way he died as well. I was like, this thing is unstoppable. There's no way I'm going to be able to kill this thing, because it just showed its raw strength there.
They cut away. Like the CG cuts away from the fact that what Nemesis is doing, but you're not seeing it quite on shot. But the fact that the sound design, and you can tell just how friggin' brutal it is by the fact you get like a closing shot of Brad's corpse land on the ground. It's actually really well shot to just scare you, despite the fact it doesn't show you the truest, goriest part.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's in that glorious PS1 CG, which I think is the only one of these deaths that does. No, Kenneth, I suppose. But
it does give you when he falls to the ground, there's a clear you can't see the hole, but there's a lot of blood on his face. It's gone through his mouth.
His character model is this bit's missing, the entirety between my hands. It's gone.
It's brilliant. But it's definitely S for me. Do you agree, Steve?
Yeah. It's a horrid way to die, and I won't wish it on anybody. But again, like Sherwin said, if Edward Dewey isn't very well, Brad is also not very well, and still technically still walking by the time of RE2. He could have just
because the city
shuffled it off.
City gets nuked.
Everybody dies.
Walked for a long time.
The difference I'm talking about with this, right, is he turns up as a zombie, Forrest turns up as a zombie, Edward turns up as a zombie, but the difference being where Forrest blows up because it detonates, it self-destructs, the whole mansion explodes. So therefore, assuming he's still in there and there's no reason to say he wouldn't run off, then Brad, he's in the city. The city gets nuked. It is gone.
So we're saying Edward's shuffling around the forest, he's not caught in the training facility blast.
Yeah, because the facility facility kind of blows up, but not the actual area where the train is.
I love, by the way, that I've been on 3 of these tier death experiences now, right? And every single one, there's one character that everything is based around. There's always something where everybody kind of bases it. There's a foundation of one character, and that character is Edward Dewey in this one.
Well, you chose him first.
Yeah.
Discreetly goated Edward Dewey.
Sherwin, do you agree with the S? I know that's a silly question.
Yeah, I've said this already. Yeah, absolutely. This feels like we put him at S straight away, and then talk about how awesome he is. Not we justify his existence like the others.
And then we're gonna get into some of the later deaths. So we have Albert Wesker from Resident Evil 5.
Hello.
Hello.
Albert Wesker dies in the first game.
Code Veronica didn't happen. RE5 didn't happen. Sherwin's world. You remember this.
They only made 3 Resident Evil games. I don't know what you guys are even thinking about.
It's actually funny you say that, because that's my exact argument with folks who constantly complain about canon and things. It's Albert Wesker should have died in Resident Evil 1.
I mean,
he turned up as a zombie in the Saturn version.
That's a question I've got to ask. Why are we considering? I mean, we're doing a lot of S.T.A.R.S members' deaths, and yes, technically, I suppose he never quit the job, but Why are we not having his first death before he was brought back by voodoo magical virus science?
Let's assume that is the death, because before we get Matrix Wesker, he has to die to get there. Even if you are to look at the really ropey canon that exists for that, he has to die first. So therefore, that is his death.
Is this a tier death experience first, where we're changing the criteria to why someone has been entered?
Well, let's focus on RE5 death. Because that's what's what's on the docket, and that's what's released content.
Slight disclaimer: you guys took as much as you want. I don't actually know what that is. Legitimately, don't know what happens in RE5. So you guys go nuts.
Okay, spoiler show, and he dies in a volcano.
Smash cut to Netflix clip. He died in a volcano. It wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like one of the movies. I'm that impressed.
Right. I'll nutshell it for you in case you need a refresher for the audience who also have not played Resident Evil 5. He is infected with his own virus, doing all this weird black tentacle arm stuff, and then he is knocked into lava, screaming rather heroically. And then Chris and his partner Sheva fire 2 RPG-7s at him, decapitating him and then exploding him while he's in lava screaming. It's a pretty definitive, if he survives this, Capcom have done fucked it. Like a definitive button on the whole Wesker is dead.
Yeah, it's a nuke on Raccoon City. It's a for him. I mean, not going to talk about kind of the things that led up to this and etc. But the death itself is pretty epic. I mean, to die in a volcano, having taken 2 RPGs to the chest and head, and being like it's pretty epic. But I mean, I don't know. All the other deaths here are like they're very in universe and they made sense. But there's no reason why Albert Wesker is in a volcano, or why they're in a volcano. There's no real clear reason why they're there in the first place, other than this is a volcano.
His stealth bomber into it. Yeah, we need a setting for our final boss. Mustafar from Revenge of the Sith will be fine. Thank you.
I think that plays a part in like the ranking of the death too, because it doesn't quite fit. And don't come after me, but it doesn't fit with all the other deaths we've got here. And maybe that's because he was a villain. Maybe. But
I am inclined to agree. I think Wesker's death, while freaking insane and all over the place, and in terms of spectacle, wipes everything else on this off the board, it is also so out of tone with everybody else's death. And the fact that he is up until this point, the mass villain, the main rival architect of all the trouble they've been going through, and then to die in such a not really relevant to the character's way, is a bit shambolic. I would have preferred Wesker being depowered and then pulverized by Chris or something, rather than he is screaming with a large tentacle arm and then gets decapitated by a rocket and blown up.
Yeah,
it's not even like how a Tyrant dies. It's not even how he died in RE1, which I thought would have been much more fitting if he just gets impaled again. Mm-hmm. Except this time it sticks. You see the light die from his eyes.
Great. Throw him in a volcano.
It's too cartoony for its own good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now the question is like, do we like? Such a strange one to rank. Because, I mean, technically, as you said, like, it blows all of these, instead of its bombastic nature of it, like, it blows everything else out. Yeah, but it just doesn't fit.
It's the Death Star explosion versus Kenobi just becoming a sheet and falling down. Mm-hmm. Like, one is a lot more impactful and resonant with the character. One is just big, showy explosions. It's... Yeah.
Ooh, so where do we put it? Was it more impactful of a death scene than Enrico Marini?
Wesker screaming Chris as he gets decapitated, filled with rage, does have at least a bit more resonance than... yeah. But I guess that's the only barometer I can really give it. I kind of feel like Forrest's death has more meaning to me, and he just It's jobbed off by crows.
I was literally just thinking that. I feel like, yeah, Forrest's death has way more meaning and fits kind of the tone of the game more than Wesker dying in a volcano. Yeah. At the moment, from what we've described, yeah, what would you?
What do you think?
D.
I think what I'm hearing here, irrespective of any misgivings I might have about these games, what I'm hearing from you guys is it's not terribly emotionally impactful. Like it's a boss that dies at the end of the game. He's the guy who gets hit by a rocket launcher and blows up. It's literally that. And with that in mind, like it just doesn't, like, obviously it fits the story because it's the death of Wesker, whatever, that makes sense. But it doesn't feel what you've said described to me just sounds kind of a bit run of the mill, and also it's kind of a good example for where the Resident Evil series went wrong, isn't it? It took away the impact or the meaning of stuff and started just jumping the shark. And then when it couldn't jump the shark anymore, like, jump those sharks. Like it just kind of just ran into the absolute, batshit ridiculousness. And I think in that sense, that sucks. If I think about original Wesker's death, it's the thing the whole game's been building up to. Like, there's a traitor. Okay, who is the traitor? Okay, we've worked out who it is. There's a big reveal. Oh God, like, whether you saw that coming or not doesn't matter. And then literally gets torn in half by the tyrant with this whole idea of, we've created this thing. It's out of our control. The whole point is, like, the virus, the zombies, the mansion, everything's out of our control. Even the guy who's literally the mastermind of it all, thought he was in control of the whole thing, ends up getting torn to pieces and dies. Like, and at that point, you just go, we just need to get out of here because it's just, there's no stopping anything. And there's resolution to the end of that story arc.
My compadres, my compatriots, I want to offer a compromise. And I'm sorry, edit person, whoever that may be. I feel like we need to put RE5 Wesker in maybe top C for the fact that it is the death of a pivotal character, a permanent death, hopefully. But I want to add in RE1's death because that show makes a great point about how the fact that he has sold out his entire team to get this bioweapon, and then the bioweapon murders him.
Kills him, yeah.
Yeah, there's the beautiful irony that he sold everyone out, and then the one thing that he was counting on sells him out. I mean, I know in the grand scheme of the tapestry of the law, they changed that, and it's like it's a planned event. But originally, seeing this man's schemes just go in the blink of an eye from the one thing he was counting on after selling everyone else out is fantastic. Like, I would put that as probably top A. Like, if theoretically RE1's death of Wesker, I'd put it top A.
Considering that, okay, so here's a thought again. Considering that we've heard arguments that from you guys that is he really a member of S.T.A.R.S at that point? There's one question. The next one is, did he die the first time and this therefore is exceptional? What we're really talking about is, do you guys seem to really care about RE5 death? No. So let's rank him based on the RE1 death that we do care about. And I agree with Steve. That's the top A for me, the list of people here.
Okay.
James,
it's not as spectacular as being killed by Nemesis, but it's pretty close.
Okay. I think that's wise because it is very hard to rank someone that is just throwaway like they were in RE5. Yeah. The way he died and the amount of weight it had at the end and the way it just made sense for the franchise as well. I would say A is a good one. I don't know where to put him though.
I put him over the others. He's more impactful than all of the rest of them.
Yeah. He's in his S.T.A.R.S costume right now, which means we have to technically edit in the RE5 one at the back of C. So that's fine.
I'd put him at the top of A. Like, he is, at this point, you absolutely know who he is. His death is very spectacular, and it carries serious weight to the whole game.
Right. So RE5,
it's all the criteria.
So RE5 Wesker, bottom of C. RE1 Wesker, top of A. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, let's stick you there. All right. I like that. Sorry, Sai, for giving you more work. All right. Who we got
Remember,
next?
and crucially, Sai, it was James.
It was my fault, yeah. It was my fault.
It's my idea. I'll take the for it.
And finally, we have Jill Valentine, who is who was assumed dead after Lost in Nightmares. After she flew out the window with Wesker in her arms. I really liked this death.
The idea of taking a superpowered man out of the window and jumping to what is assumed her doom while her partner screams for her. It's a bit tropey, but then again, this whole series is a bit tropey.
I mean, we've put as a caveat, we've put Richard Aiken Remake 1 up there for doing the same thing, for sacrificing himself, and she did it. They were getting their butts.
There was no big speeches. You saw Chris in peril, who was about to get murdered, and then jumped Wesker and took him out the window without even a second thought.
Yeah,
there wasn't points.
Yeah, and the thing is, you've been following this character all the way through the game as well, and like Jill all the way through the game, and it did have some impact there. Like she, as you say, there wasn't any like preamble to it. It was a very heroic act like that she did. Did she know that? Because I think there's like theories because she had, from from RE3 Nemesis and Remake, she still has the remnants of the.
I think she thinks she's fine, honestly. I think it's a thing that's like Wesker's fucking around with her body while she's unconscious afterwards that they technically would learn about. Okay. She thinks she's hunky-dory as far as I think at that point. Yeah. But obviously, partner is in massive peril anyway, and they've got years of compatriotism between them. Like between Chris and Jill, they are like a decade-long compadres at this point. Well, near decade, I think. But yeah. History. They would know. They would know that saving their partner's life is they do the same for each other, kind of thing.
And I think that adds to the death scene as well. Like just like the amount of history they have. For me, I think this death is in A, and I think it's behind RE1 Wesker, but before Kenneth. For me,
I am going to be a facetious git. And say that anyone who thought Jill was actually dead at this point is they're lying to themselves. They know that they're nobody, they're no corpse. I think the game's already hinted before we even get this far that Jill's probably alive anyway, and that takes the wind out of its sails a bit. The fact that it's a heroic sacrifice and they're dying, but then it turns out they're not really, and that takes it a bit out for me. If Jill had actually died, if this had been her 100% confirmed, death, Jesus, I don't think the fan bases have recovered. Technically, she might as well have died in RE5 now. She hasn't been anything since. But
I am
if
looking
she had actually died,
I am looking at it though as the actual act itself. What the act is itself, and it is a very Jill thing to do. And it's very heroic, and we've seen it in previous entries. I mean, I know you've not played it, Shoin, but just from what we described, what do you think about it?
I'm with Steve. You can't. Resident Evil goes beyond that. Nobody equals no death. Like you see a body, and sometimes that equals no death.
Right.
Like it's like you see a death, and there's no death. The sentiment is a strong one, but it's lame if you don't have a follow-up where Jill is actually dead, because at that point it's just this really obvious kind of it's a Jon Snow death,
right? Yeah,
and that's the best. And that's the best way of describing it.
Yeah, no, it's a strong allegory, I think. Hypothetically, James, if Jill had actually died here, this probably due to emotional resonance alone would put her at the top of S, because she does a massive thing, right? But because of, I would actually put like a back of A. Like, it's a great move. It's a fantastic move, but we all know it's a bit showmanship.
Right.
It's all storyline trickery. It's still resonant to a character. Jill, take him off of the team. She would do that. She would jump out to save anybody. Like, it could have been fucking Brad being strangled to death by Wesker. She still would have fucking done it, and we all know it, and it's fantastic. But also, we kind of knew she wasn't dead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it completely makes sense. Like when you put it that way, I would. Yeah.
If it wasn't foreshadowed beforehand, like they literally foreshadowed that Chris has seen her in like his PDA thing and stuff, you kind of know that Jill's not not dead.
Yeah.
Even though it's talking about how dead she is. I mean, she's even the first thing you see in RE5, technically. She's Crow Lady.
True.
But that's an entirely different thing. Look up the tier death experience on costumes for that.
Plug. Yeah. So bottom of A, Show, where would you put her?
I don't think it's really fair for me to comment, but based on what you've said, it's probably even like a B or a C, because no matter how noble the intention is, it's just a really lame non-death.
Right. Yeah.
Just a character that does something which, is just the last you'll see of me for the next 10 minutes kind of death.
I tell you what I'll do, actually, because I was just thinking about it. I was like, is that death like more impactful than Forrest's? And it's not, actually. In my mind.
What, the fake out? We're on with the fake out version, not the if she had hypothetically really died.
If she hypothetically dies, then she's like in the way you've described, it's the top of the S. It's the top of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
If as it is though, as it's presented, it sounds like it's lame. If I'm entirely honest, it doesn't sound like it really fits.
You just reminded me it's like a Stannis Baratheon death. It's like you see I know it's not a Game of Thrones tier death experience, but when Brienne when it cuts away just before Brienne's about to take his life from him, but then we're just told by the narrative that that he's dead. It kind of bothered me a little bit. And Capcom have never said that she is actually dead, and we've never got any, or she is or isn't dead. Have we got any confirmation about that?
Oh, you mean Jill? Yeah, she's alive. She shows up at the end of RE5, doesn't she?
Oh, right. Yeah. Of course she does.
Yeah.
But
she's brainwashed.
But did she die and then was brought back?
She's heavily injured, I believe. We're talking she landed on Wesker, and Wesker, being the absolute chud that he is, survives the fall and has Jill tumbled on top of him.
Okay.
So basically, we're talking about a death that doesn't even happen at this stage. So then, why is this on the list? This is like Edward Dewey. It's the death that doesn't matter.
Again, here he comes.
No. Well, yeah, he keeps on coming because he's not dead.
Tune in for Resident Evil 9 when it was me all along.
Edward Dewey is the bad guy. I'm going to keep... I'm fine with keeping Jill as she is right now. And that's the best of what we've all been speaking about. It's a good medium to keep to. All right, so with that, this is them all ranked as we initially put them, but I
can't look at Edward Dewey the same way now, Sherwin. Thank you.
He's not dead.
No, he's not dead. So if I'm looking at this, I know what you're about to ask, James. If I'm looking at this, Brad feels good, Wesker feels good as we've presented him. Oh, actually, no, we'll go from the bottom. Edward Dewey shouldn't be on the list, but that's neither here nor there. Right. Richard feels good, as in RE1 Richard. I mean, is that canon? Possibly not. Enrico's right. Jill shouldn't be on there. Forrest is in the right place. The only one I might do is I might move Kenneth down below Joseph. Possibly. I'm feeling more charitable towards Richard, basically. I might leapfrog both of those two with Richard, and then put Kenneth at the bottom of A. Maybe, but that's the only change I would make.
Okay.
So I'm open to some negotiation here because
right. Okay, let's do it. Let's go from low to high. Right. So Edward Dewey.
Yep.
Do we think his death or not death? I mean, he's in D because he's not dead. Let's just say that.
Yeah. D means the not dead rank.
Not
right?
dead.
Yeah. Well, in which case he's in the right place. He's
perfect. All right. So we've done. That's great. Okay. Richard Aiken, original game. Are him and Enrico in a good place?
See, one of them is a character that's beloved by the fandom, and the other is a meme. Yeah.
He's a beloved character with a shit death. That's the problem.
He's a beloved character with a shit death.
Enrico Marini and Jill Valentine from Lost in Nightmares. Those two deaths, do you think Jill should be higher or lower than Enrico Marini?
I think Jill should be. Jill's fake out death as it is still better than, dies by gunshot in sewer. As tragic as it is.
Yeah. What about you, Sharon?
I mean, Jill's not dead, but otherwise, yeah.
Should be in D.
Is she more or less dead than Edward Dewey? Yes, so she's at the top of D rank.
Well, I mean, literally, but in this case, you don't even have to kind of sit there and go, huh, is he really dead? Let's work out, is being a zombie really dead? She's literally alive. Like, after you see her, after this thing happens, she's alive. Like, you've just been talking about how she gets away from it all without dying.
It's true.
Like, that's not even like a have to twist the logic to make it work and kind of all joke about,
right.
Sharon thinks Edward's still alive. She's just alive.
All right, Jill is alive.
She's in the alive bracket.
Right, which is D.
I'm just hearing the people clicking the unsubscribe button. Put Jill at the bottom of fucking D. Oh,
right. Forrest and... That's Forrest, right?
Forrest?
No.
Boris. Yeah, Boris is in B. That's correct. Boris.
Yeah, Forrest and Richard from Remake. I'm pretty sure that... I'm all right with that. What do you guys think?
I'm happy with that assignment.
I think Boris is in the right place. I'm not so sure about Richard.
Okay. Where would you think
I think Richard is an A, but I think he's higher than the other two next on to him.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is Joseph, right?
Joseph.
Yeah, that's Joseph.
Yeah. I get Joseph and Forrest mixed up for some reason. Maybe it's the Frost and Forrest. Right.
It's Frosterist. Oh my god.
Right.
Almost
so
Sturgeon.
Remake 1, Aitken, and got his name again.
Joseph Frost. Did you know, James? I'm gonna be real, okay? I know I said his death is important and grotesque and violent and very Romero-esque, and I think my argument was well made. But also, the fact that you can't even remember his fucking name says he should probably go into B rank. Okay,
yeah, that's fair.
All right,
I know, Forrest, and it's a big part of me, but I can also concede if you can't remember him for 20 minutes.
And I also, as a side note, we also fell into our own little meme trap. We talked about how impactful these deaths were, but it's almost like we memed ourselves because I think Kenneth is a victim of the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Outside of the franchise, as a reference to other things, he's used a lot. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, I'll give you a self-sacrifice that sticks the landing probably beats him. I would say he's back of A, personally.
All right,
that's my thoughts on Kenneth J. Sullivan.
Right, since we've moved Forrest and Frost.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're in a good place, or do you think we switch them around?
I could switch them.
Fuck. Putting them side by side like that has really done me because I agree.
Yeah, I'll do that then. We all agree.
Boop.
Yeah,
it's done.
It's Forrest in the lead, and Frost is now behind him.
All right. Well, now we've moved it again. Do we think that Frost and Enrico Marini are in the right place?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Oh, fuck. Fuck.
Really?
Right.
Really?
I think they're in the right place. Just to help you out, Steve. I think they are.
I think the problem is Steve is anticipating a lot of backlash from people for putting Enrico at such a low level. But
don't get.
Yeah, but he dies in the sewer by a gunshot, whereas Joseph is literally the first person who's murdered on screen, and depending on which version of the game, is violent as fuck.
Yeah, so, think of it this way. Right? Enrico turns up, tells you something you already know, and then gets shot in a relatively anonymous way. Like, you don't know who it is that kills him. Like, he could be a hunter for all that. A hunter appears.
The hunter was operating a handgun.
And a crank. And that's it. So, basically, gets shot, telling you something that you already know. It's a very short cutscene. Doesn't really have much dialogue. It is what it is. Joseph also doesn't have much dialogue, but has a whole bunch of death scene, and it sets the tone for the entire game. That is a much more impactful death.
I agree.
I 100% agree. It's just when I say the words, right? When I say the words that Joseph Frost had a better death than Enrico Marini, something feels wrong. There is a part of me that I will concede it, but something about the whole ordeal feels wrong. So yes, he can stay where he is, but I just let's move on before I get confused.
Do you think we should put Frost in High C?
No.
No?
I think Forest Death is much more evocative.
Okay. Right. Okay, moving on. So, remake Richard Aiken and Kenneth J. Sullivan.
Yeah, I'd switch those two.
I would too. All right.
Sorry, Kenneth.
Since we moved them around, Kenneth J. Sullivan and that guy. I don't know his name.
I think Kenneth should drop down to a B.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think Kenneth should probably be in front of Forrest.
Okay. Richard Aiken and RE1 Wesker.
Yep.
Definitely. I am actually happy where Wesker is. I think the fact that he does all of what he does and throughout the game, and the fact that his punchline is he gets murked by it is fantastic. I'm sorry. Irony is a big seller for Steve. I'm going with that.
You're good with them where they are, Sherwin?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And finally, Wesker and Brad Vickers.
100% correct.
Yeah, don't think we need to change anything here.
Yep. And that is us ranking the 8 Dead S.T.A.R.S members.
And Jill and Edward.
And Jill and Edward were spectating from the Alive bracket.
So you guys had an honorary mention as well, didn't you?
There's 2 actually.
2, okay.
Yeah. So Steve, you want to do the first one?
Kevin Dooley, the man who would have been murdered by a Cerberus sometime between the events of Edward's death and the start of Resident Evil 0. Or he's died not long afterwards. He's the helicopter pilot who's in the remake, in the remake timeline, if you want to completely remove RE1. He's the other Bravo team pilot, basically. First body you see. He's obviously still murdered. Either way, he's dead in the forest. You see, literally, I think it's the first corpse you see in the remake. And it's pretty brutal. He gouged his face out, you see his dead eyes. It's pretty grim.
He also can't survive for very long because he's still wearing his helmet and he's sitting in the seat if the helicopter has gone down because, as Edward says, I don't know, engine failure, even though something exploded. The point is that he's literally just sitting in there. Surely you think he'd be getting out and checking something, or at least take his helmet off and kind of use the radio or something or other. So he must literally have died more or less straight away.
Yeah, essentially. He's known for literally doing this, and then we see him and he's dead. That's it. A bit of rubbish time. Kevin Dooley, the RPD backup pilot.
Oh.
So where would you put him?
He's got to be
He's killed off screen, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the lowest C.
Yeah.
Because he's dead. We can't put him in D, so he has to be the lowest C.
Life bracket, so he's the lowest.
These are honorary mentions, by the way. You don't need to put these in, so. But yeah, so low C for what's his name again?
Exactly.
Edward.
And that's the point. Yeah. And that is the point.
Who's the second, folks? Who was the second one?
So the second one is the guy in the picture that no one knows who he is. In the S.T.A.R.S picture, the one who was replaced by Rebecca.
So he's probably
S.T.A.R.S
just
member.
No name.
You know what I'm talking about.
John Malkovich. Yeah, I know what you mean, but he doesn't have a name. He's just literally a dude in a brown-ish coloured vest who stood there with the rest of them.
Yeah, so we kind of assume that, was he in Raccoon City when it all went down? In which case he's probably a zombie out there, or gets nuked by or gets nuked.
He probably went to the same place that the blonde guy did in Alien Covenant, who was on the ship and then just disappeared for no reason.
Yeah, right.
So in Resident Evil 9, right, John Malkovich is going to appear and go, I was in fact the real villain all along, puts on sunglasses, and is voiced by Lance Reddick.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I'm getting. So that's also a low C because we don't.
That's also a low C. It's a
I
little bit like.
I would put it top of D. We don't know if he's alive or dead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he could be alive. He could have gone to a retirement home somewhere. So he is actually in D.
Well, I mean, I think this is a good list, including the 2 anonymous names. Well, one of them anonymous, the other one who we didn't put on.
Kevin Dooley, who might as well be anonymous, and the other guy,
and our 2 D ranks who are neither alive or dead.
Spectator rank. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you both for joining me today in this ranking of S.T.A.R.S members. Let us know what you think about this, and come join us in our Discord and tell us how wrong we are, because I'm sure there's going to be many of you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for more, and don't forget you can support us on Patreon for more episodes like this if you want to see them early. I've been James, and this has been Steve and Sherman. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Burp.